Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We are here with another Hunter x Hunter review and breakdown, but this time we're covering 4 episodes instead of 3. I was going to cover 3 like I normally have been doing, but considering what episodes we had to do, there was a certain reason why I decided to cover the extra episode. We're doing episode 94, 95, 96, and 97. If anybody who's already watched that, you can probably guess why in 96 and 97 I had to do them together. But we're going to start off right from 94. The episode kicked off from where we last left off with Killua about to fight Ramo. Ramo is now suited up with Nen, and Killua still has his issues where he can't fight someone who's strong. Gon is still on his date with Palm. Killua is trying to fight Ramo, but he's by himself. And as soon as he goes to start fighting him, he starts hearing Illumi in his head, and he starts freaking out. He goes from, ready to fight to shaking, filled with fear, trying to keep himself from running away. We actually flash back and forth between Killua fighting Ramo and Gon on his date with Palm. Gon is a smooth customer. Let's get that out the way. He took Palm to this tree where we saw them in the last episode and waited for nightfall so it would light up with fireflies. Any girl would be impressed by that. All while this is happening, Killua is getting an ass beating. Like, he is so paralyzed with fear that he cannot fight Ramo. And Ramo is like feeding off of his fear. The more afraid he gets, the more he wants to beat his ass, the more he wants to eat him. But in his mind, Killua is battling with himself. His instincts, his mind, everything's ever been taught is telling him to run away. But he wants to stay for Gon. He promised he wouldn't leave for 30 days. At least until Gon gets his Nen back. Shoot back over to Palm. Gon, doing Gon things. Turns out he had a little tree sapling that secretes a sap that's similar to the pheromones of the fireflies. So when Palm holds it out, they all flock to it, and it looks like a giant lit up flower. Gon basically tells Palm that he knows she likes him, but he can't really give her the time that she needs because he needs to get stronger so that way he can help Kite. She gets all offended, and she turns back into Ugly Palm. Now, back to Killua, the important stuff. Just had to get that out of the way. Killua is crying his eyes out. He is admitting it to himself, he's admitting it out loud, that Gon is his best friend and he will do anything for Gon. And that he is going to stay and fight even though his instincts and everything inside of him is telling him to run because Gon is his best friend. And then he does something I didn't expect. He stabs himself in the head and it looks like he pulls something out. And he lets out a ridiculously loud scream. And then disappears. Ramo had gone to attack him, and even Ramo's like, where'd he go? Turns around and Killua is like a whole different person. He's smiling, he's confident, he wipes his eyes, and he opens his hand, and inside of it is a pin. It turned out Illumi had put a pin in his head to, I guess, control the way he acted. My guess is that he was using that to manipulate Killua's fight or flight instinct. I have seen things like that in like medical shows and stuff, where like a pin inside somebody's head. Eventually, if it doesn't kill you, your brain grows around it. But like, I watched a show where a woman had a pin in her head that was like sitting on her addiction center, so she became an addict for everything, and it was messed up. So I'm guessing this is something similar. But now, our boy Killua looks at Ramo and says, "You can go and tell the other ants if they come near any of us, they're all gonna die." And as soon as Ramo's now the one shaking with fear, and as soon as he goes to retaliate, Killua just snatches his freaking dome off. Gives him no chance. Ramo didn't even realize what happened. He literally is in Killua's hand looking at his body right before Killua crushes his skull. It was amazing, and it was great to finally see our boy grow up some. He goes back to try and find Gon and Palm. They're nowhere to be found. So he runs back to the city, ends up finding them like this. Gon, I'm guessing, is writing a bunch of apology notes to Palm while she has him at knife point. Her sweet side that she was on a date with Gon is just completely gone. And when Killua tries to stop them, she attacks Killua, tries to stab him. He snatches up Gon and they take off through the city. And as they're running, they get away from Palm, and we get to see Palm's actual Nen ability. At least that's what I'm thinking. I'm guessing it is. She's a kind of fortune teller. She has this ugly like crystal ball thing, and she gives it her blood, and she can see anybody that she's already met. I guess, from what I've seen. So she figures out where Gon and Killua are, and decides to chase after them, only to get stopped by her master Nove. And Nove, asks her where they are. She tells him, and he kind of scolds her for using her blood. I guess he's just like, it's a precious resource, and she gets all smitten. She's like, oh my god, he's the one for me. So everybody goes to meet up with Gon and they don't go to meet up with Gon and Killua. They want to keep an eye on Gon and Killua to see if they're in the right mental state to see Kite, which is crazy. Like, as soon as they mentioned bringing Kite to them, I kind of started freaking out a little bit. The episode ends with Knuckle and Moro going to take on Cheetu. Cheetu runs up to them, runs by him, dodges Knuckles' punch real quick, and bam, the episode ends right when their fight's about to start. The next episode kicks off right with them fighting, and they're still trying to hit Cheetu, but they can't because he's too fast, but they're adjusting to his speed, and Cheetu sees this. Like, Knuckle throws a punch and goes right for Cheetu's face, even though Cheetu thought he couldn't see him. And then Moro swings at him right where he's on his way to going, so he starts freaking out that they're already adjusting to his speed, so he starts going faster and hitting them more times. So he starts getting the upper hand, and then they decide to use some tricks where Moro wraps them all in smoke, and Cheetu tries to go after Moro, and then Knuckle comes out the smoke, except he also makes a bunch of Knuckle clones out of the smoke, and the real Knuckle manages to get a hit on him, putting his Nen ability on him, and he starts taking interest. As soon as it starts tracking him, Cheetu's like, F this, I'm out, let's see if you can keep up. And he goes at full speed and just gets the hell out of there. And as soon as he leaves, APR ends up following him. Apparently, once it's on you, it doesn't leave until it collects your interest. And unless Knuckle dispels it, it's going to stay with him. But while they're outside of a certain range of each other, it doesn't compound interest. So, more stuff about Knuckles' inability. Now, we go over to the important stuff. Gon and Killua get to see Kite. We find out about Hotel Rafflesia. Shoots Nen ability. Those hands. Apparently, when he does enough damage to you, he can seal an opponent's entire body or pieces of their body into this cage. That's what he did to Killua. That's why Killua lost his eye. And he has sealed Kite in there. And when he lets Kite out, Kite starts off super small and then regrows into his full size. And we get to see Kite's now stitched up face. And this is probably the clearest shot we've got of him since this happened to him. And Gon immediately freaks out. Gon's like, oh my god, what happened? He slowly walks up to Kite, and as soon as he gets into range, Kite starts wailing on him. Starts beating the ever-living shit out of him. And Gon, on purpose, lets Kite beat him up. What's the word I'm looking for? He intentionally stops himself from dodging or blocking the attacks. And as he's getting hit, everybody's watching this. But Gon, mind you, Gon can't use Nen, so he's taking the full blunt of these attacks. He has no Nen defense. While granted, Kite isn't using Nen, he also isn't toughening up his skin. So Gon ends up realizing his moves are completely robotic. Like, this isn't Kite. Kite hits harder, Kite's stronger, and he eventually dodges one of the attacks and wraps his arms around Kite and gives him a hug and tells him that he can rest, that they're gonna help him, they're gonna fix him. And as soon as that happens, we see this. This, I'm guessing, is the actual Nen ability that's controlling Kite. And I guess that once somebody manages to touch Kite, this activates. They call it level 2. And that he becomes more dangerous and more relentless as soon as somebody gets within striking distance of him. So they leave him, and we get to see just how angry Gon actually is. Just for a second. Like, he's furious, and all he wants to do is destroy who did this to Kite. Now, we start heading over. We're on the train, heading over to East Gorto, I believe is how they pronounced it. Everybody's there. Shoot, Knuckle, Marl, Nove, Palms in the back, Gon and Killua on the other side playing cards. And they start talking about the plan that they're going to enact when they get there. Shoot is a little nervous about Gon coming, because Gon, while he's been physically training, he hasn't been able to use Nen for a month. so they don't know if his Nen's going to be up to stuff. They get there, they're eating, they're waiting for the call from Netero to figure out what they're going to do. Netero sends them a text message of their plan. Turns out that, each of them are going to split up into teams to get the Royal Guard away from the king, and Netero himself is going to deal with the king. Well, right before they start their preparations, Moral wants to make sure that Gon is ready. And he takes off his shirt and he flexes his Nen. He gets massive and he tells Gon, hit me with everything you got. I want to see if you're ready for this because we've seen everybody else prove their stuff except for you. So he's like, I want you to hit me like you're going to hit the person that did that to Kite. And Gon walks up and he's like, you want me to hit you with a real attack? And he says, yes, hit me with everything. Even Knuckles like, hit him with your full power Jaja cannon. And Gon makes this face. He just lets the darkness out. All that sadness and pain that he's been welling up, especially after seeing Kite, he lets it out just for a second. And as he starts to charge up his Jaja Ken, he puts so much Nen into it, and that the air just whips around him. It cracks the ground underneath his feet. It shatters the tiles up in the air. It starts blowing over the trees. He's about to kill Moral when Killua steps in, puts his hand on him, and tells him to calm down. Relax. He doesn't have to keep going. And even Moral is like covered in sweat because he knew he was about to die. And even Gon's like, oh my god, I'm sorry, I was about to kill you. He snaps back into the Gon we know and love. But we saw a glimpse into the darkness. And it was wild. The episode ends with Moral explaining who's going to be fighting who. I actually wanted to include this in there because I thought it was cool. Gon and Killua are going to take on Neferpito. Knuckle and Shu are going to take on Montutu Yopi. And Moral and Nove are going to take on Shadowpoof. And that's where the episode ends. We also see Meruem face to face with Netero, so that's a little bit of foreshadowing there. But then we hear the narrator say it's going to be 10 days until the operation starts. But now we get to the important stuff. We get to the craziness. We get to the reason why this is covering 4 episodes. We get to the Phantom Troupe. I'm guessing this was a filler episode because this has nothing to do with the main storyline. But I was so here for it as soon as it showed up. It turns out we start off with a news report about Chimera ants attacking people left and right. And it turns out they're watching it on TV because Meteor City got attacked by some Chimera ants. So they're going to clear out Meteor City. Now, as soon as I saw the Phantom Troupe, I went nuts. I was so hyped for these episodes. Well, I thought it was only going to be 1 episode. Spoiler alert, it's 2. So they get there and they find out that the leaders of Meteor City are debating on what to do because they're not sure if people are actually dying or not because they're being turned into a kind of pseudo Chimera ant. Not that they know how it's happening, but we get a glimpse of this ugly thing, and it turns out that there's a Chimera ant there who is proclaiming herself as queen that has the ability to turn humans into Chimera ants. It turns out it's Zazan. She was one of the Chimera ants that the queen made, one of the first ones that actually had human DNA in it. And it turns out her tail can turn people into this, which doesn't even look like a normal Chimera ant, but apparently they are completely loyal to her. Well, Phantom Troupe go in. We've got Shizuku, Phaeton, Finks, Bonalenov, I want to say is how you pronounce it, though the narrator pronounced it differently, and Shalnark. And they all split up, and they basically said they're going to race to go defeat the queen. Whoever defeats the queen gets to be the new leader. Killua's little brother, Kaluto? Yeah, Kaluto. Kaluto basically asks why we're splitting up, and they're like, we're racing. But if you win, we'll make you the interim leader. So this catches Kaluto's attention, and he goes off too. First thing we see is a Bonalenov fight. He actually dodges a Chimera ant, and his bandages come off. And we get to see why he wears the bandages. This man is covered in holes from head to toe. It turns out that he's from, a tribe that uses the wind going through the holes in their body, kind of like a living flute, to make sound. And he uses it to conjure abilities with men. First thing he does is he makes like an Aztec mask with a spear and stabs the Chimera in it. Then we jump over to Shalnark, and Shalnark's fighting this ugly big bug that's covered in like armor, and he needs to stick it because he's a manipulator. He's like, if I can stick it with my needle, I can just control it, and we're all good. He manages to dodge a few attacks and stick it, but it turns out that big thing was already being controlled by somebody else. So since it's being controlled by somebody else, he can't control it, and it manages to grab him up. This little guy's the one controlling it. And we actually get to see Finks' net ability, which we didn't see the entire York New City arc. He rotates his fists, almost like a pitcher throwing a ball. And every time he rotates it, it increases the strength of his punch. So he had a gorilla Chimera ant hybrid talking smack to him. And he's like 15. He rotates it 15 times and hits this dude so hard that he basically explodes. Even Finks is like, I guess half of that would have worked. I'm not good at judging the power. And his enemy's just dead. We go back over to Shalnark, who's still caught up, and apparently he has a way out of the situation. He says that he always carries around 2 needles, and this is why. And he sticks himself in the leg. And he manipulates his own body. His phone goes off and basically says, autopilot mode activated. And it basically gives him a superhuman boost in aura and in physical ability to basically forcibly decimate the opponent. And he basically releases so much aura that he blows the arms off of this bug, jumps off of it, and his insides explode. And then he kills the other manipulator immediately. And as soon as he comes back to himself, he's like, ow, this hurts. I guess pushing past his own limits, causes him physical strain. So he's like, I'm gonna be sore for days after this. Now we go over to Shizuku, and she's fighting Pipe, the ugly spider that we talked about forever ago. And she is not doing well. The spider has grabbed up her vacuum. She makes it disappear and reappear as she's trying to get close to hit him, but he's not having it. We get to see a little bit of Kaluto's abilities. Turns out he manipulates paper. He stuck a piece of paper on all the Phantom Troupe members and is basically using it to track where they are. He ends up hearing that Phaeton is actually already with the Queen, and Phaeton's already over there fighting the Queen. So he's like, I'm going to go intercept. But then he gets attacked by a Chimera ant, and he uses a fan to basically blow small pieces of paper and uses the small pieces of paper like blades. Once they attach to you, they can just cut your limbs off. We get to jump over to Bonolenov one more time to see the end of his fight as he uses sound to attack the enemy at a distance. The enemy tries to run away, but he even says, you're not faster than sound. And he basically conjures a plant-sized bomb and just drops it on him and just immediately crushes him. Now, our boy Phaeton is out there having trouble. Now, while Bonolenov and Finks are already done fighting, Kaluto was slicing up his opponent. But Phaeton is actually struggling against Zazan, because Zazan's actually pretty fast and really strong. And Shizuku, well, she was struggling against Spider-Boy. So the episode ends with them still fighting. Now, because this left on a cliffhanger is the reason I had to do a 4th episode, because I was way too into this and didn't want to stop. And I wanted to make sure I got my thoughts on this while they were still fresh. So, Phaeton is still fighting Zazan. The episode opens up with Finks and Bonolenov meeting up, and we get to see that Kaluto just sliced their opponent to pieces. So Kaluto's going to meet them, and Shizuku gets grabbed up by giant spider web that he spits out of his butt. And he even says, this hurts my anus. She manages to get out by stripping down to her bra and panties and squeezing through one of the holes and making her vacuum. The one time he thinks he caught her, she jumps up behind him and beats the shit out of him with her vacuum. She did that to create enough lacerations to then drain the blood out of him using Blinky. Kaluto gets the rest of them. They're all just watching Phaeton fight. And they're deciding that, if Phaeton goes down, who's going to fight next? And since Finks and Bonolenov got there at the same time, they flip a coin. It's amazing. But Phaeton's actually having fun. Phaeton even said that he was out of practice. His body wasn't where it was supposed to be. They are all commenting that he's not nearly as fast as he used to be. So he's using this opportunity to gain practice. He honestly reminds me of Kenpachi Zaraki from Bleach, because that's the same mentality that he has. But we see Phaeton do some cool tricks. He actually has this umbrella with a skull on it, and that's where he houses his sword. But apparently it shoots projectiles too. He manages to hit the queen, Zazan, in the face, and she gets so mad that she transforms into, she rips off her tail, her stinger, grows a lizard tail, and turns into this ugly thing. As soon as she transforms, Phaeton tries to attack from behind, the back of his neck, the back of her neck, using Ko, forcing all of his aura to the point of sword, but the sword still snaps. Apparently Zazan's body is too powerful, and Zazan turns around and swings at Phaeton with just a little bit of aura, but because Phaeton had focused all of his aura into his sword, he had none for defense, and he got wrecked by this attack. Now everybody's watching, everybody's starting to worry that he might actually die. He's trying, well, not worried about it, but they're deciding who's going to go next. He ends up breaking an arm while trying to defend Zazan, and something happens. Finks asks him, "Are you want to swap out now?" And he starts talking in a totally different language altogether. And as soon as this happens, the other Phantom Troupe members start running, and they tell Killua, "We gotta get the hell out of here." Phaeton's gonna use his Nen ability, and he's gonna kill us all. Basically, his Nen ability apparently has a super wide range. It's triggered by anger, and once it happens, he doesn't hold back. And apparently there's different types, and Killua wants to watch, but Killua doesn't want to die, so Killua starts running. We see him release a bunch of Nen, and then all of a sudden, his Nen goes black. Killua looks back, because, the Nen aura is gone, but we see Phaeton wrapped in this crazy-ass suit. And Zazan's like, when did he put that on? And he's like, he's so much stronger now. He makes like a ball of aura, and then releases it into the air. He calls it Pain Packer. And then it explodes and turns into a freaking sun. And he literally cooks Zazan. She literally sits there, her hair burns off, her skin starts burning off, until literally she turns to ash. And he literally, after he's done, the outfit comes off, and he's just like, the heat wasn't that bad. It would have been faster if you did more damage to me, so you only have yourself to blame. And I'm like, really? Really, Phaeton? Really? Well, as they're leaving the Queen's Palace, which is now half of it's blown away by Phaeton's attack, they are surrounded by the pseudo-chimera ants that she forcibly turned. They aren't turning back, but they're like, at least they're free from her. And they start asking for the Phantom Troupe to just outright kill them. And they're like, no, we don't do mercy killings. And Finks literally has the coolest line in the series. I have a clip of it. I'm going to play it for you guys right now. It's literally only like 65 seconds long, so hopefully I don't get copyrighted for it. But I want to include this in it, and I'm sorry. It's from the dub. Don't hate me.
Kill me. Have mercy. Kill us.
Hell no. I don't do mercy killings, but feel free to attack us. Where's your pride? You're still natives of Meteor City, aren't you? What's the matter with you? Show us you got some fight left! Send yourselves off in style!
After their mercy killings, they basically decide to stay in Meteor City, so if the Chimera Ants attack again, they're going to just immediately take them out, because killing off the survivors really bother them, especially Finks. Shalnark and Phaeton start talking a little bit of crap to Finks because, he's being emotional. And the episode ends with them, they're kind of like one big happy family. A happy, violent family, but a happy family. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. And I was honestly really happy to see the Phantom Troupe fight the Chimera Ants, though I am more excited to see what's going to happen with Gon and the way he's been acting. But that's it for this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that I gave you guys some good insight into how I thought it was feeling about it. Obviously, the Phantom Troupe got me hyped, but man, our boy Gon is going down a dark path. That face that he made to someone who's supposed to be an ally. But that's it for me, guys, and I'll catch you on the next video. Later.